want to start at the corner of here and now and what's happening right now as it relates to Rugby Sevens and your team, and the fact that you're kind of in the middle of the season. You'll begin going to Hong Kong here in a few weeks in April, and but let's talk a little bit about Rugby Sevens and your Hard as Nails campaign, just to start with. If you want to just jump in and talk about what that's all about, and a little bit about Rugby Sevens, the main differences between that and Rugby 15s.
Right. Okay. So for Rugby Sevens is the Olympic version of rugby, and typically the main difference is the number of players on the field, with sevens being in the name. There's 7 on each team on the field at a time, and they're only 14-minute games, but you'll play anywhere from 5 to 6 games in a weekend. And then for 15s, it's the long form of the game. There's 15 aside, and it's an 80-minute game. So pretty classic, more classic, I'd say, sports game is probably 15s, but sevens is definitely the more, in my opinion, exciting, sort of anyone can win on any given day version of rugby. And in terms of the Hard as Nails campaign, that's a campaign started by the HSBC 7 series, really just to kind of try to combine the art form of doing nails with the femininity of doing nails with the toughness and grittiness of being a female athlete. So it's just kind of a way for the women on the series to sort of display their femininity while also being strong, beautiful, independent athletes.
It is really that balancing act too, where you're female. You're not a male athlete. You're a female athlete, whatever that means for each woman in terms of. I have a 6-foot daughter that played volleyball, and they wore makeup, but for those that wanted to do it. So I have some awareness about inclusivity and the idea of letting people kind of celebrate their individuality. Can you talk about that value a little bit as it relates to the Hard as Nails campaign and being inclusive, what that means?
Wow. Yes. So great question. I would say for our team specifically, I can really only speak to the USA Rugby team, but for us, inclusivity is everything. We pride ourselves on being a very diverse team, both from anywhere from race, religion, sexual orientation, and background, where we're from, and all those different points of our lives. They don't tell our whole story, but they are part of our story, and they make us stronger as a unit, because despite those differences, we all come together for a collective goal, being the high women of USA Rugby. And in terms of the Hard as Nails campaign, I would say something really special about that I got to experience in Perth was a part of it is getting your nails done. And we were able to kind of sit down with all different sorts of teams, like Japan and France were in there at the same time as us getting their nails done. And it's fun to kind of take a step back from competition and just get to do something fun together on the series as different teams and get to know them a little bit better. I would say I'm pretty good friends with quite a few of the girls on the series, specifically from Australia and New Zealand, those sorts of teams. But it's nice to get to know teams that, you wouldn't otherwise really talk to. So that was fun.
Well, that's great to hear you kind of elaborate on a little bit. And just as a spectator, it is kind of striking to see you women come down the tunnel at the beginning of the match, and the teams are side by side. You're watching women in the kit from the other country and our players side by side coming out with smiles, and then you proceed to bulldoze each other for several minutes out there. I like it. I couldn't believe how much I liked it, including the way things worked out with Australia, with the bumps along the way with teams like New Zealand that are very good, and just fascinating how countries with smaller population can punch way over their weight if it's just a sport that the country is consumed with, that has support. So I give them a lot of credit. But thanks for elaborating on that a little bit and going back to your schedule. You're going to be going to Hong Kong here in April, and that's a big deal for people that don't know that much about the international leagues for rugby. Talk about that event and the crowd that's expected to be on hand and what you're excited about.
Yeah, Hong Kong is, to some considered really the birthplace of sevens rugby. It's one of the most historic tour stops we have on the series. The Hong Kong tournament is one that always brings a lot of joy because of the fan base in Hong Kong. They always know how to bring the party. That's I don't know specific numbers, but at least by player field being on attended tournament every year. There's always people in the famous South stands in crazy costumes, getting wildly drunk while we're playing, which always adds to the fun because you just hear the shouts and screams every time you score a try down by the South stands. But yeah, we can expect to see a massive party, a lot of support for both the men's and women's game, and more importantly, the start of the championship round for the Seven Series. So the last three tournaments of the year are basically to determine who wins the entire series and who gets to stay at that top level. So we're expecting our men's team to make an appearance there, given they do their job over the next 2 weeks in Series 2, Sevens 2, and it'll be fun to kind of have a reunion with them in Hong Kong with both the men's and women's team competing.
Yeah, and that's a big stadium in Hong Kong. I mean, there will be a big crowd there. About how many does that seat? Do you know off the top of your head? It's not a small event, it's a big event.
Yeah, I would not know that off the top of my head. I do know one year there was over 40,000 people there. They recently got a new stadium. So last year was their unveiling of the new Seven Stadium, the old, very historic, very famous Seven Stadium there. Retired my first year and then got to play in the inaugural tournament in the new stadium last year. So can only expect more people this year that had FOMO from missing out on the party last year. But yeah, it's going to be really exciting.
Well, that's great. Talk about the present to start with that, and then really quickly, I just wanted to go back, to your beginnings and kind of your personal story, kind of what got you to this place. Looking backwards, you come from a military family. Your father was a ranger in the U.S. Army, and right, that meant
He was a Green Beret, so he was Special Forces.
I beg your pardon.
I
Only
think a
Green
little
Berets and
cooler.
Rangers would be offended by that.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Rangers, but yeah, Green Beret, a little cooler.
I'm here in LA, but I am down in San Diego a lot. And of course, that's place is full of Navy SEALs. So kind of the same difference. It's an elite group. Your dad moved around, the family moved around. You started in Alaska. You went to some other places around the world, including Germany. Talk just briefly about that. Maybe one thing you took away from each one of the places that you landed, including North Carolina, where you went to school for high school.
Yes, I mean, I think overall, growing up a military kid, it's all about how your parents frame it to you. And every time we had to pick up and move, whether it was 1 year or 2 years, it was always an exciting thing to get to move, to get to see a new place and meet new people. So I would say I took a lot of social skills from being a military kid. Just having to constantly, make new friends, make new best friends sometimes, and then just kind of say, hey, see you later. And this was before social media and everything had really taken off. So some of my very best friends growing up, I don't know where they're at or what they're doing, but yeah, so I would say it just took a lot of social skills, the ability to kind of put myself out there, and I think that's really helped me not only in my rugby career but my military career, because it's the same deal. You move around a lot. You have to make friends and connections really quickly to all for a common goal. So I've used those skills my whole life.
That's a good way of looking at it, including you were in Germany for a little while, right? You weren't just in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, I was like 2 years old when we lived in Germany, so there's a lot of pictures of me at cool places, but I definitely don't remember a single bit of that. But yeah, my when we lived in Hawaii, I mean, that was awesome. My parents are super active people, so every weekend we were getting out doing a new hike, experiencing something cultural. They're very good about that too, getting us to know the culture of different places. So that was very special as well.
Yeah, that helped a lot, didn't it? If you're there, you're going to make the most of wherever there is, and not just, wish you were back at the place you left, or be thinking about being someplace else. So, fast forward to high school in Fayetteville. You finished your high school. At what point did you decide you were going to apply to the academy?
I decided I was going to apply to West Point my junior year. I didn't really know what West Point was until then. My dad went through the normal ROTC channel to join the military, so it wasn't until one of my friends' moms sort of started talking about it and said that that might be a good fit for me is when I started doing my own research and fell in love with the idea of being at an elite academy, a place where it was going to be hard work to do well. And I'd always really thrived in competition environments. So I was excited to get accepted and honored, especially to go alongside my twin brother, who was also accepted at the same time as me, was something not a lot of people can say they've gotten to do.
Wow,
So
that's really neat. I didn't see that in my research, so I'm glad you mentioned that. How fun to go through that with your brother through the 4 year experience. I have enough people that I know that have been to the academies. That first summer, you kind of have to get there at the beginning of summer, correct? Did you have to get to West Point? Not at the end of the summer, at the beginning of the summer, and you're not sitting on the beach that summer, freshman year. Talk about that a little bit. It's a lot of work.
it is, and yeah, as you would know with talking with your friends, the first summer is known as Beast or sort of cadet basic training, and it's a little mock basic training for cadets really. The upperclassmen are in charge of the plebes coming in, the freshmen coming in, and it's really the break you down to build you back up mindset. You're learning military discipline. You're learning how to shoot a weapon for the first time, how to ruck march over 10 miles with 40 pounds on your back, um, basic military tactics, and really just how to be a follower, because I think a lot of people who get accepted into West Point are big fishes in small ponds, and West Point is a big pond, and you need to learn how to follow before you can learn how to properly lead. So I think it's also a very humbling experience for a lot of people for showing up there. And yeah, it was very hard on me. I did not have a very good time my first summer, but it was always nice kind of to look out of the corner of my eye a couple companies away and see my bald-headed twin brother going through the same experience as me. So that was definitely got me through.
That's really cute. Just picturing that, sweating, whatever, thinking about your friends back from high school that were not going through that grind. And about how many people decide, if you can pull this number, if you pull this statistic out of the air. I know a certain amount of people say it's not for me, and that's the whole point of that first summer. It's self-selecting. It's sort of, some people realize I don't want to do this. What's the percentage at the academy on roughly that just say I'm going to do something else and hang it up at the beginning?
Yeah, I don't have that statistic, but I would say my class, the class of 2020, started with somewhere around 1100, and we ended with somewhere around 900 actually graduating. So we had a pretty tough class, I'd say. A lot of people stuck with it all 4 years, but um, yeah, no disrespect or anything to the people who say it's not for them, because it is hard, and I think it's good the academy gives cadets, those first really 2 years before you have to affirm that you're joining the military, the beginning of your junior year, to decide whether or not it's right for you, because it's a big commitment.
That's right. They do give you till midstream to kind of decide if you want to stick or not. So, and in your case, like a lot of people, not only are you dealing with academics, or not only are you dealing with all the training, etc., outside the classroom. But you're dealing with athletics in your case. You're adding a third leg to the stool in terms of all the balls that you're trying to juggle. You were playing soccer at some point in your life and you switched over to rugby. Was that kind of going into the academy or when you were in high school?
That was 100% going into the academy. I wanted to play soccer at the academy. I tried everything I could to get on that team, but the coach just did not want me. So during Beast, you're allowed to sort of go out and try the different D1 sports, mostly to see if the academy had missed any potential with their recruiting. And I was already kind of in contact with the rugby coach, Bill Leclerc, at the time. But once I kind of got the official no from the soccer team, I started attending rugby practices, and it was pretty much love at first tackle. I totally just fell in love with the sport right from freshman year. And yeah, it never felt like a chore to have to run down to the rugby pitch after class. It was always my favorite part of my day.
That's great that it worked out so well for you. You were able to transition and you moved into a starting role pretty darn quickly, if I'm right on my research. You joined the rugby team and you were a starter within several matches, not within, your sophomore season or anything. You got out in the field there pretty quick. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I think it was the third game the starting winger had gotten injured, and I went into the game against none only than Alona Mar's team at the time, Quinnipiac, who were a crazy force in collegiate rugby when I was in school. So that was definitely a trial by fire type game to be thrown into as a freshman who had never played rugby in her life. But yeah, it was just what I needed, though. I think it was good to kind of just get thrown with the wolves and figure it out from there, because it definitely built some resilience into me early on in the sport.
And fast forward, you find yourself on the same team with Alona years later, which must happen a lot in sports when you get to the U.S. team level, right? All of a sudden, your competitor is your teammate. And so that had to be a fun, interesting journey to see who's on the team now that was competing against you, like her years ago. So you went through the Army. You were highly decorated in rugby over your career there, and then you finished West Point, and of course you got to do your military service, Captain Sullivan. That's your current rank, right?
Correct.
You're
Yes.
and you're part of the Army's world-class athlete program, which means they'll let you fulfill your military obligations and play your sport and sort of work with you on your schedule. Is that correct?
Yeah, the World Class Athlete Program is extremely supportive of soldiers competing for the Olympics and specifically for Team USA. And I, of course, once I graduated, went and did my platoon leadership time at Fort Carson as an engineer officer, and it was the greatest time of my life. I still completely miss my platoon more than anything. It's really a toss-up between who I love more, my rugby team or my platoon, because the Army is just a bond like no other. So it's hard to compare. But once I had fulfilled my key leadership time, I was able to apply to the World Class Athlete Program with the blessing of Coach Emily Bidewell. And yeah, WCAP has completely changed my life. I love representing not only Team USA, but the US Army every time I put on a USA Rugby uniform. And especially when we do get to a final and they're playing our national anthem and I get to salute during the national anthem, along with my teammates who have their hand over their heart. It's just a very special moment for me to get to really show my pride for being an officer in the Army. So it's very special.
And yeah, congratulations on that. In addition to your athletic accomplishments, including your bronze medal in Paris, amazing achievements in your attitude in it all. Because you're communicating a lot of gratitude, but there's a lot of work that goes into it, and a lot of suffering. I'm assuming you've had one or two injuries along the way that were a little bit more serious or took some rehab. Have you got any war stories where you harmed yourself and had to take some time off?
Only one real war story when it comes to rugby, and that was I had a torn labrum going into the Olympics in my shoulder, and it had happened probably 3 months before the Olympics. And I just give all of the credit to my athletic trainer, Nicole Titmus, for being able to work with me through that, tape me up before every practice and game, talk me through when I would take a particularly hard hit or give a hard hit in a game, and that would, twinge my shoulder in a way. But other than that, and then I had separated my SC joint, the joint that holds your collarbone to your sternum, about a week before the Olympics. And that was very scary because you get right to the gates, and all of a sudden you might have this injury that will prevent you from, making your Olympic debut. That was really scary. But again, Nicole got me through that, and I made it onto the field, became an Olympian, and luckily still contributed a lot for my teammates, because that was also the other fear. Is playing hurt is one thing, but if you're not playing at your best, like, you might as well not be on the team. So I was grateful to still perform well for my teammates.
That's great that worked out. Having that condition going into Paris, and you were still able to get out there and not be hindered or, feel like you're a liability. You're able to contribute to the team's success and be a part of that whole experience. I want to make sure I give a shout out to your husband, Jonathan. Chanel, you got married in
Gosh.
2020. Pardon me, Josh. In 2024, I wanted to, in spite of messing up his name, I wanted to definitely include him. And you got married in 2024. Talk about him a little bit. And obviously, you're the spouse of a world-class or Olympic athlete is a special person. He or she has to be all in. So you want to talk about Josh a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm the luckiest Olympic athlete in the world, because I get to be married to an Olympic coach, because he's the strength and conditioning coach for the men's team. So I met him once I came out to play for the team. We obviously work in the same place, and I was just like completely enthralled by him from the beginning. And he totally gets my schedule, because he's mostly on the same schedule. He understands the sacrifice that it takes to have to take time away from family to go to tournaments, have to miss certain life events for rugby, because he's had to do the same. So we were at the Paris Olympics together. The men played before the women, so he took care of business with the men's team, and then was able to join my family and watch me in the stands during Paris, which was, I think, totally awesome. We were engaged at the time, and then 3 days later, after we got back from the Olympics, got married at the courthouse. So it was really special. And yeah, he's definitely my rock. He understands what it takes to be here and knows what I need to hear when I'm having doubts, whether it's for my playing ability or how I feel on any given day physically. He always knows how to get me out of those funks.
What a perfect choice. I'm so happy for both of you. It worked out so well. He truly does sound like a great fit. And the fact you got married 3 days right after the games, that's amazing. Weddings take a little bit of planning, so I just don't even know how that worked 3 days after Paris, but it really isn't important. I did write a story about that during the Paris games. There are several athletes that got married during the games.
Yeah,
And
a lot of athletes got engaged. One of my own teammates, Alev Kelter, got engaged during the games as well. So love was in the air. It's Paris.
good point, and pretty magical. I mean, if you were going to do it anywhere and you could plan it, I get that, whether it's getting engaged or getting married. So I wanted to finish with talking about Paris and the road to the bronze medal, and just specifically, I could talk about two or three of those matches, but I really just want to take a minute to talk about Australia, because they're good. They're a respected, peer competitor of the U.S. team. I saw several great athletes on the field, and the physicality of the game, and then to see Alex Cedric at the end. And I was looking at your faces. I've watched the film several times. Your expressions, and the Australian girls slowly begin to cry. And Alex goes the length of the field after stiff arming, one or two players on the other team. It's just there's nobody between her and the other end. And then she pulls away, and watching the film, like she's running so fast, they're not closing the gap. So what was going through your mind? You're down 12-7 and she breaks away. When did you know she's gone? She's going to go.
Yeah, I think I knew she was gone as soon as that stiff arm connected successfully and she broke that first like 2 meters. I knew she was going to go score. And the scarier part of it was who was going to take the conversion, because that was what was going to win us the game. And none of our main kickers were on the field. And Alex Spiff, as we call her, Spiff had taken 2 warm-up kicks in the warm-up, had kicked like twice the entire season, and then slotted it perfectly through the uprights. Was kind of when I for sure knew we were going to win. But I really didn't know until she actually made that kick if we were going to have to go into extra time or not. But yeah, for her try, I have so much complete and utter belief in all my teammates, especially that team. That specific group had been playing together for 2 years, because that's when I had joined the team. Everybody else was pretty much seasoned veterans, but I just knew she was going to score.
Well, any one or just one more thing that you loved about Paris for you personally in that whole experience? Most of us will never be an Olympic athlete, much less on the podium. Sports or beyond sports, one or two things about Paris you realized were really magical for you personally in getting to represent your country and being there, winning a medal with your teammates, seeing that conversion and knowing we're going to win and we're going to be on the podium. Any one thing that comes to mind that was special for you about that whole experience?
Oh yeah, I think the first thing that pops into my head is growing up watching the Olympics. There's always the P&G ads about, thank your mom or thank your dad. And it's these super emotional commercials about all the troubles these parents go through to get their kids to sport practices. And then it cuts to that kid at an Olympic Games, like winning in front of that parent and everything paying off. And I think as a young athlete watching those commercials and realizing like that's exactly what my parents were doing my whole life, is encouraging me to whatever sport I wanted to try. They never pushed me into any one thing, but they were always willing to drive me 3, 4, 5 hours to these random soccer tournaments all throughout the East Coast. And to get to have that winning moment in front of them, to even just become an Olympian in front of them. They were both, my mom and dad were in the stands along with so many other members of my family, was what I'll forever remember. I literally in that moment thought back to myself as an 8-year-old watching those commercials, like, wow, I'm living in a P&G commercial right now. Like I'm literally making my parents that proud. So that's something I'll always take pride in.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I found that with a lot of Olympic athletes that I've interviewed, is there's an Olympic parent. And in a perfect world, they are like your mom and dad. They don't want you to ever be scared of trying things, but they want you to decide what you're going to do and not do. And that's a balancing act, as you know, and you'll find out certainly if you're a parent someday. So I want to give a shout out to not only Josh, your husband, but to your mom and dad. Well done. And you got to promise me, last thing here, Sammy, I'll let you go, that we'll do a follow-up interview in about 24 months, because I'm in LA and I'm going to be working right through those games, writing about people like you and writing about you again. And up to speed, we've got a great Rugby Sevens field facility in LA. If you've seen it, it's fantastic. Brand new, about 10 years old. So I wish you the best of luck in the meantime, best of success in Hong Kong and beyond,
Yes.
and stay healthy. And thank you again for everybody that made this interview possible. I look forward to writing a story about you in about 10 to 14 days. We'll put something out on Forbes and then do some fun clips of some of this great stuff that you shared on social media platforms. So thank you again, and thanks to the team.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. And I definitely promise a follow-up interview. Hopefully I'm there, whether or not I'm playing or in the stands. I'm going to be at LA 2028 as well. But yeah, I'm very excited for that Olympics, and I'm excited this young team, this sprite and determined team, I think is going to do and could do even better in LA than we did in Paris. So I'm just excited to be a part of it.
That's exciting. And I just don't see you not being there. It's kind of perfect in terms of where you are in your career, really just peaking and taking off. So I'm going to be counting on us talking and you getting a chance to wear the red, white, and blue colors again.